Welcome to the Tuesday live lesson. And today we are looking at a new finish. This is a finish that I've never seen anyone else do before, and Jessica worked on developing it and has decided to share that with us. Jessica, why don't you introduce yourself and then explain why you created this particular finish?
My name is Jessica Schick, and I rug hook and I quilt and design patterns um, for both of those things, as well as embroidery. And so a few years ago, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And um, at times, not all the time, but at times, it's really, really hard for me to do the finishing part of the rug, the actual whipping. And it doesn't, for me, it doesn't make any difference if it's burlap or rugwarp or linen. They all hurt. I do like rugwarp the best. And that did give me extra problems because having several layers at the corner um, made it really hard for me to get a needle through. Even with the pliers, I couldn't grip the pliers well enough to pull through. And so um, I was trying really hard to get Cindy's fold forward finish to work for me because I've always had trouble with my corners dog earing or being lumpy and all this sort of thing. Um, so I started out, and yes, I was doing it wrong to begin with. Her fold forward, I was using a needle that was a yarn needle, and it was far too large. Um, and so then I went to a tapestry needle because I didn't have a doll needle available right away. And that was still a little bit too big where the eye is. And it was short, and that didn't help me get it through the corners because I just couldn't grab and pinch to hold the needle. So I've got a doll needle, and that still didn't work for me with using the fold forward finish because of all the layers. It was just too hard to get the needle through and make it nice and neat and go so many times. So I started thinking, okay, well, what can I do to make to get rugs finished and not to kill my hands and still have the integrity of the edge of the rug fit so that it's not going to wear like a knife edge. And so I looked at the fold forward finish over and over, and the actual knife edge where that would be in a fold forward is at that edge that's about 5/8 of an inch away from the rug because it is folded in half. Your inch and a quarter is folded in half, and then that is a knife fold finish right there, or knife edge right there. And so I thought, well, what if I take out that extra layer and fold forward? I tried that, and that was just too, there wasn't enough substance to it. And folding again, it didn't keep the integrity there. So I thought, well, I have to fill that area with something. And I don't want to fill it with anything that's cotton or polyester and like cording. This doesn't take the place of cording. I mean, to a certain aspect, it does, but it's not meant to take the place of cording because for me, cotton cording gives me the same issue back.
Right, and we
So
we
taking
talked
out, yeah,
we talked about this earlier. It's the analogy that I bring is if you have an inch high stack of cotton and you try to stick a needle through it, it's like sticking a needle through wood. But if you have an inch high stack of wool, you could slide that needle right through. And that's kind of what the basis of this finish, I think, works off of. It's your needle is
it
sliding
does.
through a different fiber.
Right. And for me, wool is a better fiber for my hands to work with. Before we get too far, the basis of this is that I am putting an extra row of wool loops, or in this case, it's very thick wool that you wouldn't want to hook with. Let's put it that way. It was like a military blanket. And then I
Mm-hmm.
washed it and folded it, and it's really, really thick. It's like a quarter-inch thick. And so that's what I'm using in place of that extra layer of rug warp.
Okay. So let's go through the steps. Or, well, actually, let's
Sure.
go through what supplies will you need.
You will need your backing. You'll need a way to either serge the edge or sew the edge of your foundation so that it doesn't unravel. And this is even more important in this type of finish than it is with the fold forward, because you have a little bit less backing to work with. So if it starts unraveling, that could be an issue. Um, you'll need probably some extra. I just used extra wool left over from my rugs, so that I was making loops that were the same color that's in my rugs. And the reason for that is that then if was to happen to the rug and something needed to be replaced, they could open up the finish, take out some of the wool that's in there, use that in the rug, and replace this with something else. Um, you'll need your doll needle. You will need scissors, and you will need your the yarn or whatever material you're going to actually do the final whipping with.
Okay.
So those are the materials you'll need.
Okay. And then we put together some images that we can step you through the steps on how to get through this. So, and I can't seem to make the message at the bottom. Either go
That's
away.
okay.
Let me see. Let me try one more thing. Here we go. How do you do this
You're good.
finish? There we go. Walk us through the steps on that.
All right. So in this image, it shows that what I did is I normally hook with a 6 cut or smaller. Um, and I decided a 6 cut would be good to work with, because for me it happened to be half of the amount that's in Cindy's fold forward finish. Um, as far as the distance, she has 1.25 inches, and I just lopped off. My very first sample was I lopped off half of that amount, knowing that that's what I wanted to get rid of, was half of the backing on that was sticking out. So I have 5/8, and 5/8 wraps around a number 6 cut in loops perfectly. If you are using a different cut size, that's fine, but you're going to need to wrap your backing from the back to the front to see where it will go into the crease between your hooking and your extra row of loops, or your extra stuffing,
And
whatever you're stuffing it with.
and I think that'll make a little bit more sense once we move on to the
So,
next couple of steps.
so the first thing you're going to do is draw lines that are 5/8 if you're using a number 6 cut. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. And then we'll talk about whether you're using a different cut and what sizes you'll need. But everything I'm saying is based on a number 6 cut, and the fact that you'll pull it up about 1/4 inch. So the first thing I do is, and these are just samples. I wasn't going to do it on a rug right away. So I was working with little sample pieces. That's why there's no hooking in this piece. I drew a line that was 5/8 of an inch out from the edge of my hooking. The edge of my hooking is the black line right here. We're pretending. So 5/8 out to the edge, I drew my next line, and I did that on all 4 sides. And then I serged on all 4 sides. Now the corner what I did is where the lines made a little box. And let's see if I can show that. Oh, I don't have one with that. But if you took this corner and extended it out, it would make a little box. So I just drew a diagonal line from corner to corner in that little box. Yep.
Okay.
And then I serged across that. I will say do straight stitch first across that area a couple of times, even if you're going to serge it, because that just stabilizes that edge. Otherwise, you can get a little bit of waviness. It'll make it a much easier corner to deal with if you stay stitch it first. So then what I do is I hook an extra row of loops outside of where my actual rug image is. So this is showing it without hooking where the rug would be, but that's just for intensive purposes so that you can see what I'm doing better. So pretend that there's loops inside the black lines as well as the one that's on the outside of the black line. So you're going to do one row outside of your actual rug piece. And if you want, leave like a row of holes between. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't, but I will say it is a little easier if you leave one row of holes, because then you can get your backing that as it comes forward, you can get that rolled very nice and tight into that crease. And that's what this is showing, is that it's loops hooked right into that area on the edge. And you're going to do a dead stop at the corner. You're not going to hook into that corner. You're going to hook right up to it. And you can see here, they're hooked right up to the corner and they're just coming together like this. And here, initially, I was just pulling it over from the back to the front in the crease and trying to get it to, and just doing like a running stitch along there. And then I realized that would be really, really tough once I had loops in the middle. And that's when I switched to actually doing like a whip, a loose whip. Now I mean far apart. So about every quarter to half inch, I'm coming around from the back and bringing to the front and sticking the needle through from the front towards the back of the foundation. And it's rolling over that outside edge of hooking. Thank you for that, Kim, who pointed out that I needed to go from the back to the front because that would actually pull it in tighter. And this picture is just showing how I'm coming up to that corner and doing a whip. And then the corners fold together because there's only one layer. They come together at a 40-foot, like a mitered corner, perfectly. And so what I do then is I do an X that goes from towards the center of the rug to the outside on the other edge of this finish. And so it makes an X. The first thing I do is make an X, and then I put a line that goes through that X, so it looks like a little asterisk. And the reason I put a line through that X is that's going to be my 45 when I go to do my whipping with the yarn. And that gives me some place to aim for. You can do the next one. This is what the back will look like if you're using the extra row of loops. And it doesn't matter because all of those stitches, all of that stuff is going to be covered with your final whipping. An alternative, if you don't want to use as much wool as it would take to do an extra row of loops, you don't have to do the hooking, or if you find that that's difficult to hook on the edge once you've got things, depending on where you have decided to hook as far in the process, because usually I decide after I cut off the edge. So that wasn't fun. I would say hook your extra row before you take it off the frame and do any finishing. But if you don't remember and you decide to do this finish, you can take the strips, and this again is a number 6, is I laid 2 thicknesses, so 2 layers of wool and number 6 cut, and then did the same exact thing that I did before. So you can see where the cursor is pointing. There's 2 layers of regular hooking wool. Or if you've gotten a hold of some wool that is recycled, or if it's, it just happened to be too thick or it's too frayy, all the wool that you want to use, you can use inside this finish. Now, that being said, I talked about it earlier. I would like to use a color that's in my rug, like something that I think is going to be hard to replace. So I wouldn't pick, from my background, those are easy colors to replace in this run. I would pick something like the purple, because I hand dyed a lot of the purple, and it's going to be hard to get an exact match for something. So I'm going to put that purple, I would put that inside my finish. That way, if something happens to the rug down the road and I need that color, I've got it. And this shows that, and I just did a running stitch. I mean, just enough to hold it in place. And those corners are butted also, but those go right up in the corner because, I pack a little bit. So when I do loops, my loops fall into the corner, but with the flat stuff finish, it needed to go into the corner a little bit. So it would be filled up. And then I whip with yarn. Personally, this is sock weight. So this is fingering or sock weight yarn. And I really like it because it is so nice and fine that it lays really flat next to it. And it's a dream to needle through. It is so easy to whip with. The area here is marked, says hooked rug area. In your rug, that would already have loops in it. I was just trying these out at the time to make sure that everything would work. There's my corner using sock yarn and using the wool stuffing, and no pliers are needed. I used that diagonal stitch that I went across the X when I was tacking the corner together to make a perfect 45 miter with the yarn. And so here is because somebody suggested, well, hook it first and then do this. And so here it is. I just hooked randomly sample and did the finish. Here's the front and the back. And ignore the one corner on the back looks weird. That's just camera angle. They come out at 90 degrees. And then they also lay really, really, it lays so flat. There's no bump at the corner to start turning the rug, to push it over. It's less of a tripping hazard. The edge lays exactly the height of my loops because it's filled with my loops, if that makes sense. Basically, it's hooked the same height as I hook everything. And so all it is that it's covered with a thin layer of yarn.
Thanks, Jessica. You saved me a lot of talking. Thank God for the mute button because I was coughing in the background. So hopefully I muted at the right times. But one thing too that if you are a yarn hooker and you don't have wool strips to lay in there, bring in your yarns. I did that before with a linen rug, and I needed a little bit more bulk in it. I needed cording. The stores were closed. I wanted it finished. I went and found some yarn, which was too thin, so I did a chain stitch in the yarn. Put that in there. It was too thin. So I did a chain stitch with the chain stitched yarn, and it bulked it up to the nice thickness. But you might have chunky yarn. Maybe you bought it for whipping and you've since learned that chunky yarn does not work. It's not faster for whipping.
Cindy, we've got a little reverb going.
Do we?
There's a little reverb going. Yep.
Oh, there it goes. Is that better?
Okay.
I
Better.
don't know why that is even in there. It should not even be in there. Um, but yeah.
I've since trying to find a way to use this finish. Now my picture's going too. So but you can hear me, so that's good. I'll just look like it'll be fine. I used like about the weight of Let Lopey or worsted. It would be like 2 strands of Cascade 220. So you're going to want something that's a little bulkier, probably like a bulky 5 weight. Let me see if I know that if I'm just going to step away for 1 second and I'll grab something I know will show you what that will be like.
So while she's walking away, what we were talking about, hopefully I can edit out the bad sound from before, is if you're a yarn rug hooker, to use your yarn to bulk up that little bundle. And if the yarn's not thick enough, double it up, triple it up, 6 times it up, whatever it takes to make it work a little bit better.
So I don't know if you'll be able to see how fat that is, but basically
Yeah, we are definitely losing your picture.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a string hanging off this thing. Okay. Here's a 6 cut, and here's the yarn. So see, just take a 6 cut and compare it to some yarn and try to get about the same.
Okay. Dara is asking, have you tried this finish with linen yet?
I have. And it works exactly. Actually, it's a little easier even.
I would think so. I would think so. You got to remember the principles of what we look for on a finish is you don't want the knife fold edge immediately at the loops. And this one is not. In fact, this one has 0 knife fold edge, which is quite unusual. You want it to bulk it up so that if you're doing a whipping, it is as thick as the loops. Well, the extra row of hooking or the laying of the layers, either in wool fabric or wool yarn, both of those make it thicker. And then the whipping is just the whipping. But the beautiful point of it is when you have to go through that bundle in the corner, you're not going through 6 or 8 layers of cotton rug warp. You're going through just the, single layer on the bottom, single layer on the top, and then wool in the corner. So your needle slides through very, very easily.
Do I cut first? Sonia's asking, do I cut first, then zigzag, or zigzag, then cut? If you don't have a serger, you're going to need to stitch first.
Oh, now see, I disagree.
I have a serger.
I disagree because what happens is I find a lot of people end up cutting the zigzagging. So I cut first and then I zigzag with 1 foot on, 1 foot, how it goes back and forth.
Oh, so it goes on and off.
Yeah. And that works better.
I would agree with you then, Cindy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But I would also stay stitch the 45-degree angles. Just like
absolutely. That
you
bias
found on
just
the
is going to kill you otherwise. So on this rug that I've been holding up on and off, right here, it's got rounded corners. And I'm doing the finish.
The easiest way to avoid them.
Yep. And I didn't stay stitch that curve. And I just serged around it. I will not be doing that again. I am going to stay stitch that first, then serge my corner around.
Yeah. And you can do that.
Because that bias.
You can do that stay stitching even before you cut it off. I mean, it could be done at any time. So just, and it's a pain because you got to get out a different machine, but that's the way it goes. So Joanne, I don't know if I put this up before or not. Joanne said she tried it with linen and no problem. So that's very good.
Yep. Yep. I had no problem. I've tried with monk's cloth. I've tried with now rugwarp. I've used it, done it quite a bit now. I did it with linen. Um, I haven't done burlap yet because I just haven't gone
Right.
there
Please
yet.
don't hook and
I
burlap.
can't imagine. I can't imagine it would be. And I mean, but I have some older sample pieces that are on burlap that I didn't figure I'd actually ever finish.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give it a shot. So we'll see what that does.
So Sonia is asking, basically follow Cindy's instructions. Yeah, you're cutting it.
Yeah.
What is different is that you're cutting it off to a smaller dimension because you're not folding it and then folding it again. You're only folding it once, and you just need enough backing to go to hook into, and then for it to go around that hooking and come back down and meet the backing.
Right.
So the higher you hook, the more cut size.
See if I can do this.
There you go. See how it just literally just wraps around that, and then the edge of the cut edge of the backing just goes down and meets the backing. That was clear as mud. But basically, yeah, you experiment. Do a row of hooking and then fold your backing over and then mark it where it meets, and then measure it, because everybody pulls up to different height, you know. And the most
Right.
important thing is to do a sample. That's what Jessica was following. These are samples that I've created, that I use for teaching different methods, because it shows all the little steps, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? But yours don't have to be this long. You could probably do half that length. I have it this long because it's being passed from student to student around a room, and I found that the size and shape works best. So yeah,
Right.
follow those instructions. You're cutting it off to a different length. You're creating something in there to fill it up because you don't have that extra fold of rug warp, and then you're stitching it down. And once you're to that point, it is exactly following the fold forward whipping
Yeah.
instructions.
It is identical. This 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 finish is just me trying to find a way to to keep the archival quality as well as being able to do it with my specific situation. Otherwise, it's following Cindy's instructions for the fold forward, except for the measurement of that first part. And honestly, I would say I have done 5/8 with a number 4 cut. It was fine. I mean, I didn't go down
Right.
less than 5/8 because folding folding over less than 5/8 is rough.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I have tried
Absolutely.
I have tried that because I thought, oh, I'll do really skinny and see if I can make a really skinny edge for those people who really want a really thin edge. Just keep it at 5/8 and just roll it in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get down to like a 3, I would say a 3 or a 4, but you will have to do more than 5/8 if you're doing like a 7 or an 8 or a 9
A,
cut.
a bigger cut. Yeah, and Kim is
Yep.
saying it's easier to stay stitch before any hooking is started, except I never know where my edge is going to be until my rug is done. Even on commercial patterns, I'll often go, a half inch bigger than what is there. So, if you never change anything and you don't get creative at all, then yeah, go ahead and you could do it in advance. But I would recommend waiting until the end based on my work habit. And then Jane is asking, is this a good option for stair risers? It is and it isn't. It would work fine on a stair riser, but I don't use a fold forward on a stair riser either, because there's only so much design room in a stair riser. And what you'll want to do first is measure your actual stair where this is going. If you're on an older house, the stairs might actually be slightly different measurements for each stair. So you might have to pick a stair and then do that measurement from under that lip to the bottom where the next stair starts. And do you have room to do a finish like this? I don't. So I use a different finish. It's listed inside the basics course in the Rug Hooking Journey membership. It's listed as the invisible finish. That's the one that I use for stair risers because I can't afford to give up any design space to a finish. And that's the reason for that. Like on the fold forward, there's a little bit of measurement here times 2. So it might cut into the design in order to do that. And there's actually an article on my blog about how I got excited at a workshop. I had taken a stair riser that I was hooking with me. I finished it, and the girls were all like, yeah, show us how to finish. You can finish that. And I thought, yeah, good idea. Holy cow, bad idea. Because what I did is I did my default finish. I did the fold forward. In fact, I could show you. Make sure I don't rip the microphone out. Here's the one that did not fit on my stairs because of this extra finish. Here's the regular stair riser with the invisible finish, which doesn't show or take up any space. And if I line them up, they were the same size pattern. Look how much bigger that is. And it's basically 2 times that finished edge. So if you use it on a stair riser and you don't have a lot of clearance, you could fix it so it doesn't fit. But if you don't care what size it is, like a lot of people will order the stair risers and then use them like on an end table, as just a mat, a table mat. Then you're not restricted to a size. Or if you're hanging it over a window, you're not restricted to a size. And yeah, this would be a great thing to try this new finish on. But if you, for the first time you use it, make a sample. Do a little coaster, do a little, maybe 3x3 or 4x4 coaster. And, something like this, even, just a color kind of study. You don't even need a design. And then just hook it up and then try the finish on this. Okay. You end up with a coaster, which is cool. But if you don't like the finish, you're not past the point or no return. You can still go back to your old default finish if it doesn't work for you.
Right. And the other benefit that I found of this is, how you've ever been barefoot and stepped on the corner of your rug and it hurts because you get it just in the wrong spot. For some reason, the fact that it's the same thickness as the rug, along with the squishiness of the wool that's inside, it gives a little bit, just enough so that it doesn't hurt. Also, chair pads too. If you've ever sat on the corner of the chair pad,
there's a good option for it. Yeah, use it as a chair pad.
Because the edge of the chair pad,
you don't have that hard
edge. I get
edge.
Comfortable. Yeah. Yep.
Although, how long do you want your dinner guests to linger? So I guess that's part of it.
Well, there you go. I guess that determines how you finish your chair pad.
Okay. So I don't see any more questions coming in. For more information like this, make sure you subscribe. The little buttons down below. You might have to hunt a little bit more if you are on a phone or a mobile device. But when you subscribe and you turn on notifications, YouTube will send you a notification that I am live so that you don't forget it. Or put it in your calendar every Tuesday at 4 p.m. right here on YouTube. If I'm not here live, I'll be uploading and premiering a recorded video. The other option is if you want more interaction where you can actually come on camera and ask me questions and show me an issue in your rug, join the rug hooking journey. We have office hours every Friday, so it's a good time to get your questions, particularly if you don't have your own rug hooking teacher that you can see every week. So, Jessica, do you have anything else to say? Or
Um, Other than the rug hooking journey has been a an amazing community, um, and has given me lots of inspiration, lots of confidence. It's a great place to go to be if you're just looking even for extra information. I have learned so much um, by being part of the rug hooking journey,
no,
and got a lot of really good friends too.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And I basically met Jessica during office hours, and we do have a free hook in. It happens every Wednesday and Friday. And a lot of the members from the Rug Cooking Journey show up there also. But that is actually available to the public. So you don't have to join the membership to come to the hook in. So I hope you all will join us next time, and we will see you there. That's it for now. Thanks everybody for coming, and
Thank you, Cindy.
we'll see you next time. Bye for now.